Hello, I'm Lauren, and this is Improving the World. I am an international improviser based in Hong Kong, and I talk to amazing improv women all over the world. Today, I am talking to Balasree Viswanathan. She is based in Bangalore, India, and she has a lot to say about women in India doing improv. And can I tell you, I freaking love her. I hope that you do too. You are an improv comedy person based in Bangalore. You are also the artistic director of an all-female group called the Adamant Eves, which is such a good pun. It's India's first and currently only, please let there be more soon, all-women improv group, which is so fantastic. How did you get into improv? What was that?
I was in the US for grad school. I was in North Carolina, and I just happened to watch an improv show by the college group. And I remember thinking to myself, hey, I can do that. That just looks like a lot of fun, and the rest is history. Never looked back.
And so then you moved back to India. What does the improv scene look like where you are?
The audience is still largely new to it. We still have to do like, so how many people know what improv is before every show? And you'll end up with at least a couple of people like, I have no idea what this is. I just know it's comedy. And so because of that, there's also not a lot of improv in terms of performers or schools or a support system where you can learn. Part of the work that we do in Improv Comedy Bangalore is creating and seeding that community, trying to ensure that we are able to get enough talent from outside to come to India and teach us, and so that we can learn more. And yes, please do just come. We want you to come. We want you to come.
Done. Okay. So this scene is evolving, and that's really exciting. And what does it look like? I mean, for you, are there lots of different kinds of people? Is it all Indian people? Are there expats?
When I do improv in Bangalore, it's all Indians.
And we're talking specifically today about women in improv in India, which is why I have this background, because I'm a woman. Now I'm in India and I'm in improv. We got it.
Improv,
okay.
Yep.
So what was it like for you when you were doing improv in North Carolina versus when you were in India? Did it feel different?
So improv in North Carolina, I would say, because improv has been around a lot longer there. I started doing improv, and to me, I was just like, hey, this looks like fun. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. A lot of the senior players and the improvisers there were really instrumental in giving me a good foundation on what improv is and a glimpse into what comedy would look like.
Yeah.
But what happened in North Carolina was some of the newer players did not see me as Bala, a person. They saw me as Bala, a brown person with an accent. And that came up in shows a couple of times, which I was taken aback. I was just like, wait, I didn't think about myself that way. The accent is one of the most jarring things about me. Oh damn. I don't know how to feel about that. So my accent got picked on a couple of times during shows and rehearsals.
Okay.
The fact that I'm from India, a couple of stereotypes about India would come up every now and then.
Right.
At the time, I was just laughing and, just like laughing it off and being okay with it. But inside, I was just like, no.
It's always funny to me when someone mentions something about what I actually look like in improv or what I actually am, because I forget. And with the general rules of improv, I thought that I left Lauren at the door and that I was now being whatever character. So to bring up my physical stature or what I look like or what shirt I'm wearing is so odd to me. And when I teach, I often have to remind people that you're not Lauren, you're specifically not Lauren, right? So this is interesting to me that someone would bring up you and what makes you you, because to me, if you're on stage doing improv, you're not you.
And then I moved back to India in 2017, and I found Improv Comedy Bangalore. And you did ask me the difference between what the improv was there and what it was here. Because improv is so new here, it's been a learning about how to do improv. It's a more technical learning. And here the emphasis is more on, oh, you're a woman versus you're a man in improv. It's not so much you're a brown woman, which was the case back then. Here it's more about, oh, you're an Indian woman doing improv in India, and that is a completely different beast to tame.
Right. So we're not now choosing to talk about or like poke at the fact that you are different because of where you're from or how you sound. We're still finding why you're different and poking at that.
Yeah, it still comes up time to time. especially when we play with men. It's something that I've heard I know this is anecdotal evidence. I haven't done any sort of statistical study to see how many women have felt this, but most of the women I've spoken to do feel quite intimidated with having multiple men on stage and being the only woman on stage. So that is a pretty pertinent issue, I would say.
Tell me why. I mean, speak for people who are not you, but share your opinion as well. I mean, why does it feel daunting to be on stage with men? That could be a statement about being anywhere, and it could be improv, and it could be, other stuff. But why does that feel daunting, either for you or the people, if you want to share their stories?
Yeah, for the longest time, I didn't know as well. I was a woman on stage with multiple men, sometimes be the only woman on stage with multiple men doing improv in India. I would just end up going into a shell and just not being myself, or just making very meek choices. I didn't have the vocabulary for why I was doing that or feeling that way. I would just think, maybe I'm just sensitive and scared of everything. That's probably a me problem. And that's something that I've seen that a lot of people do, a lot of women do, which is they go inwards when there's a problem. And I did talk to a lot of people. I floated this question. I don't feel comfortable doing improv with men. One teacher, I don't remember who it was because it was a while ago, they told me the whole pirates, ninjas, and robots, the three buckets that improvisers generally fall into. And they're like, yeah, men are generally pirates, where they make like big, loud choices, and it can be daunting, and it can be big in the sense that there's only room for one. And I started paying attention to it. I realized that a lot of my choices got steamrolled when there was a lot of male energy on stage. I realized that it is not a me problem as much as I thought it was. Identifying this entire thing about pirates, ninjas, and robots was important for me to start working on how do I work with what I have now.
Talk to me about this put down comedy thing. We touched on it before, where we're finding what is different about you and we're poking at this. But my goal on stage is to make you look good, and your goal is to make me look good. And together we make something better, right? So this idea of trying to be funny is not something that I'm actively working on. The funniness will just happen. We're just being authentic, and then the humor rolls in. Is this something that was part of the language and discussion when you started improv? And also, this is a two-parter, does that feel like it's part of the foundation of the improv in Bangalore where you are, this idea of making each other look good?
Yeah. So when I started out, because improv comedy, these are two terms that are set together, improv and comedy. And a lot of the comedy that we know is stand-up comedy, which a lot of it involves making fun of people and poking fun at what's different with people. So I personally think that that's where the whole angle of I have to be funny, and so in order to be funny, I'm going to make fun of you. I think that's where it comes from. To answer your second question, which is making the other person look good, whether that's the language that we have in Bangalore right now, I would say yes. When we do improv, we have ensured that that's the sort of foundation, that there is delight in looking at mundane things in a different light. And that's where the joy of the audience comes from, like the relatability of it, or the audience thinking, hey, I never thought about that before. And that's the sort of joy that makes the audience laugh. Where I don't see it is where people who have an idea of improv, who just have seen Whose Line Is It Anyway on television, we will have a couple of incidents where we're doing a jam and someone says something extremely problematic.
Right.
Maybe they're doing improv for the first time, so we'll let it slide. But also, you are a human being who can think and who knows what's happening in the world. So that's not okay. So learning happens after that. We're gonna step in here and say that wasn't okay.
If you're okay to, can we talk about what are some of the stereotypes that are coming up during shows or in jams or workshops? Are these things that are about gender assumptions, classist discussions and stereotypes that are coming up? What are the kinds of things that are arising that you feel are problematic and that we're working on?
The big one that I've seen is homophobia.
Okay.
Something India is struggling with as a nation. We very recently decriminalized homosexuality. Yeah, I know. I'm like, it's about time. I want to. I'm also angry, but I'm also like, okay, calm down. It's a win. It's a win. But
it's a win.
We'll take it. So long, and finding people who think that someone's sexual orientation is funny. in a city like Bangalore, it just baffles me. But I also immediately am struck with the realization that this is the reality for a lot of people in India. And yeah, the second one is just about women and appearances, making fun of things that people can't change, like things about your appearance. Like these are the things that people latch onto and make fun of, or where they're from. Like even within India, we have states, and each state is like a different country with a different language and a different cuisine. That's more understandable and sort of accepted and laughed about.
The problematic stuff that comes up, is it just coming from the players or is it coming from the audience as well?
It's a mix of both. Sometimes when we ask for suggestions, the audience does yell out something that we're just, it's like a half a second of, oh, it's still jarring that in 2020 in a metropolitan city in India that this happens. We try to play with the suggestion that they gave us, taking the suggestion and then showing the audience through what we do, like, hey, listen, this is what you gave us. In its original form, it wasn't all that nice, but here's another way to look at it.
Who's yelling this? So we have a lot of gents on stage maybe and a minority of women. And is the audience a mixture of people who are identifying in all different kinds of manners and genders, or is it mostly one section yelling stuff?
It's mostly straight men is what I would, I'm saying straight. I would say, yeah, straight men are the ones who are most vocal about it. In fact, in one of my shows, I actually had a man who was sitting in the audience in the second row who was trying to have a conversation with me as I was on stage. I was like, I am so impressed. I am going to take your number after.
Yeah. Oh, that kind of conversation. You're like, yeah, this is the moment. I'm totally into you now.
Yeah, he's so whatever I'm saying on stage, he's always having a side commentary, and it's loud enough where everyone around him is just like, dude, that's not okay. But he's just having so much fun. And I just look at him, I just stopped mid-scene. I broke and I'm like, can you please stop doing that? That's kind of distracting me. But like now I realize, like, if that ever happened to me, I would just be like, hey, you want to join me on stage? And just, get them on your side instead of showing them that they're wrong and sort of putting a wall between us. Just bring them on stage and be like, it's difficult what we do, and having you is making it more difficult. Why don't you join me on this side and sort of share in my difficulty, so you have more empathy. A lot of women are showing up at our improv shows for the first time. They don't say much, even suggestions I'll have to pointedly, like, this section of the audience, by whom I mean you three women, give me a suggestion for da da da. They need a little more coaxing, but men are just always ready, in the sense that they're like, yeah, yelling stuff out and yelling things that make people uncomfortable.
Okay. And of course, we're not here to step on these men. We all want to be picking each other up. This discussion is really important because we want to be recognizing the behavior and talking about how we're shifting and making change. On that note, you have Adam and Eve's now. So tell me about how that was born and what that is and what it looks like.
So the Adamant Eves is India's first and right now only actively performing all-women improv ensemble. We've been around since 2017. I'm part of a bigger group called Improv Comedy Bangalore. In 2017, we realized we had 6 women on the team, and it was an equal number of men and women. So we thought, hey, this seems like a cool experiment. Let's see how the audience reacts to just having women on stage, because usually when it's men and women, we get gendered suggestions like, give us a professional relationship between 2 people, and the audience is always ready with secretary and boss, and looking at the woman and going secretary. And there's only so many times where when the audience gives you that suggestion, where the man takes the secretary and the woman takes the boss. Like that's a trick that's been tried and tested, and the audience is like, oh, that's so smart, and I hadn't thought about it. Now we're just like, you know what, we're done with that. Let's just have women on stage and see what the audience, how the audience reacts to us. So it was an experiment, and now it's just become a movement of its own.
I know that obviously with all women, it's going to feel different, but in terms of the audience that comes now or the content that you're producing, is it different than what you were doing before with the entire group of men and women?
The difference, I would say, right now is what the focus is on. I wouldn't attribute all of it to us being women, but I would say the focus is now on emotions and narratives. I would say narratives because a lot of us are storytellers, but emotions is a very important aspect of the scenes that we do. And the topics that we pick are very different from the kinds of topics that we pick when we're doing it with men, because we are women in India and we are faced with issues on a daily basis that we're reminded of. When we do improv, that's like the first thing that comes out. It's always just bubbling beneath the surface. When I do improv with women, most of the time there have been like scenes where one person thinks of something and the other person is just immediately on the same page. Like I just initiate a character who's a person who's just being bossy, and they know exactly who this person is, and they have a person like that in their lives, and they're like, yeah, this person, is my sexist boss, and I'm like, yeah, that's who I was playing. Great, we're on the same page.
Yeah. Is the audience still yelling the same sort of sexist, gender assumptive things? And do you have more women in the audience now?
Yes, there are more women in the audience, but again, I wouldn't attribute it to just us being women and performing, people who identify as women on stage. That could be attributed to a bunch of other things. But the audience, when it comes to yelling things, they've sort of tempered what they yell out. They don't yell out gendered things anymore. But I guess it's also because us as an ensemble, we've grown to a point where we know how to field these and we know what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm curious as well. So you said earlier that some of these topics that came up that were raised, maybe before you wouldn't say something, but then now you're getting to a place in your improv and your experience that off stage you would be like, let's have a chat. This was a little bit weird. We need to poke at this one. Are you doing that now with all women? I'm sure that we still have our own assumptions and experiences that come into the fore. Do you still have to have these moments and discussions and say, like, let's talk about that either on or off stage?
Emotional safety is very important, especially with the Adamant Eves. We have check-ins where before the show we're just like, how's everyone feeling? And then after the show, how's everyone feeling? Was there something that you did not like during the show? Or was there any point in the show where you felt like you weren't listened to or not supported? I feel like as a group, we're very tuned into each other, and we are very cognizant of the fact that we won't bring up issues that make our other players uncomfortable. There are still some instances where the audience does yell out something that is off color a little bit. We play with the suggestion, show them through what we're doing why that suggestion or why what you yelled out wasn't all that great. It's not an attack. It's more like, hey, you said that. There may be 100 reasons why you did. But here's one reason why it wasn't okay and why it made people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's this evolving discussion, isn't it? And I think that it's sort of irrelevant where you are. Interestingly, through doing this and having these discussions, I talk to women all over and we're having the same discussions. Everyone's getting dildo yelled at a show. Everyone's having to have interesting, challenging discussions about both on and off stage. And I think that we as players are having to make the change and as well kind of drive that discussion. So the audience is coming with us, hopefully, on that journey. Bala, what are your words of wisdom? If you could talk to the younger version of you, your peers in improv, or someone who's never tried it before and they're curious, what do you want them to know?
I have quite a few words of wisdom, I would say. So in India, we don't have a lot of improvisers. The scene is still very young. A lot of women come up to me after shows and stuff, and they're like, "I'm really interested, but it's so daunting and it's so scary, and I don't know where to start." So my words of wisdom to them generally is just start somewhere, but don't be too hard on yourself. Like it is daunting. I'm not going to say that, get over it, or, we're doing it, why aren't you doing it? Just it's daunting. Acknowledging that it is scary and that you are scared is the best first step to take towards getting into improv. Second, don't ever put down what you're feeling as maybe I'm too sensitive or maybe I'm not cut out for it, because I did that a lot. Because whenever there was something that made me feel off, I would just go sit somewhere where nobody could see me and cry about it and then be like, maybe I should just stop doing improv, maybe I'm too sensitive for it. And then I realized good improv makes space for you.
Totally.
So that's my third, not my final, but my third words of wisdom is that good improv makes space for you. And you won't always find it in your first go, so you will have to make that space. and it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful at times, and you will feel like you are stepping on toes, but keep doing it, keep stepping on toes, and until you've created that space, because then once you do, you can invite other people into that space and make the process easier for them. The last one is always punch up, never punch down. So if you're going to make fun or poke at an issue, let it be something that you are facing, or a real issue that is something that needs to be spoken about but isn't being spoken about. Don't bully. That's the word that I feel like is most apt for it, is don't bully people. Don't make fun of things that people can't change about themselves. If you do feel like this is a pressing issue, bring it up on stage, punch up about it, let that start conversations. As always, don't try to be funny, just be yourself.
Yes. Yes, you're right. You did have many words, but I think that they were all rather wise. And I will just add, I don't usually do this, but I will add to something that you said about that person who you are or were, who was feeling frustrated and went off in your corner to like have a little moment and cry. I would say with that, for me, have your moment, take your moment. If you need your moment, that's allowed.
Oh yeah.
But secondarily, if you were thinking it and if you were feeling it, it was needed in the moment, in the scene. So often in improv, we say, if you're on the side waiting and you're like, should I jump in? Should I jump in? Yes, you should. If you're wondering if you should, you should. So if you're feeling it and you're wondering if you should be having these feelings, yes, you should. And also, therefore, I would say maybe they should be on stage. So, so much. Bala, if people want to find you, come and watch shows, to see what you're doing in an online space, to just generally throw money at you, hang out with you, buy you coffee, wine, whatever, how can they find you?
You can find me on icbangalore.com. Company is called Improv Comedy Bangalore. We have pages on Facebook and Instagram. I run the Adamant Eves page as well.
Thank you so very much for your time. It was wonderful to speak with you. It's getting a bit hot now in the day, so I'm going to go.
Oh, yeah. Sun's out.
Tell you what.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. It was great talking to you. Thank
you as well. All right, folks, this is Improving the World. I'm Lauren, and if you want to hear from more amazing women from all over the world, there's more where that came from. Bye, everyone. So, did you love the video? If you did, please say kind and wonderful things in the comments down below, and look for more Improving the World. See you next time. Bye.